Good morning and welcome to our Women's Wednesday Entrepreneur Series. I'm Brandy Stitt, the Program Director for the Women's Business Center. We're so glad that you're able to join us for this session. We will be recording this webinar and we'll be posting it on our website as well as on the Women's Business Center's YouTube page. So feel free to reference it later if you'd like to revisit this topic, and also feel free to share it with any other business owners that you think could benefit from this topic. Today's session is going to focus on supply chain management, and we're very excited to have our friends with Veracity Consulting joining us again to present this topic. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Angela Hurt, who is the founder and CEO of Veracity Consulting, to get us started. And then she will also be doing an additional introduction of our presenter for today. Angela, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I hope that I'm unmuted and you can hear me.
Yes.
Pat, thank you for sharing that. Brandy, thank you so much. And thank you for welcoming us, and welcome to everybody on the call today. I just want to do a really quick introduction to Veracity Consulting. As Brandy mentioned, I am the founder and CEO. I started the company back in 2006. We've grown to a little over 150 team members, both here in Kansas City and throughout the nation. I think our largest employee count is local, but we are spread from Hawaii to New York, so we're all over the place. I'm just so excited that we have the opportunity to present to you guys as a woman-owned business. I wanted to kind of share just really quickly my experience with the Women's Business Center. So in 2006, after I started the company, deep into 2007, while I realized that I really understood and knew how to grow a book of business, I didn't know how to be a CEO. And so after a little research, I came across the Women's Business Center, which was a key experience for me. Started with they put me in touch with a strategic planner, kind of went that route first because I knew what my business model was. And from there, I had the opportunity to join a CEO roundtable, which was a very rich experience for me, both from knowledge gaining and from the relationships that I built. And ultimately, I became a mentor to a woman-owned business. And then I joined the board of the ECJC, which is over the Women's Business Center, sets within that. So to say that I'm bought into and believe in all things the Women's Business Center does is somewhat of an understatement, but I'm thrilled to be here and thrilled also to introduce our team today. As you can see on the right side of this is all of the things that we do at Veracity. Kind of talks about our disciplines. And what you don't specifically see on this slide is supply chain management. That would be within our strategy, architecture, roadmap development, along with program project management portions. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Pat Shore. Patrick Shore is our VP of Innovation. He runs a lot of workshops for us. Is a great educator and a tremendous addition to our team. And I think you guys will really enjoy what he has to say today. So with that, Pat, take it on. Thank you.
Angela and Brandy, and welcome everyone. I'm going to tell you up front, I've been fighting allergies. So if you see me take a drink or chew a little bit of gum here and there, please forgive me for that. It's not a normal activity when you're doing presentations. Secondly, I really like to do these in an interactive face-to-face situation. So with COVID now, it's put a change on a lot of different things. So if you've got questions and all as we go through it, don't hesitate to go to the chat capability and share that information with us. But yes, today we're going to be talking about supply chain management and really how aligned are we? And the idea for today is we want to make sure you walk away with the knowledge to make good decisions about your supply chain management process. So we're going to jump right in, and our agenda is we're going to share some fast facts. We're going to talk about supply chain models, partnership types, get an idea of all of the components that make up your supply chain, do a little bit of self-scoring, and then creating some action plans. And you can be as involved in that process as you want to be. So if you think about it, our objectives first and foremost is the customer experience and how your suppliers and partners impact it. So we want to make sure you have an understanding of why you should have a supply chain plan, understand the ecosystem components, score yourself, come up with a few ideas to improve, and then really create a high-level set of prioritized actions you can move with. Last week, we did one on cybersecurity, and we had a lot of good feedback from people that indicated, as a participant, I really want to have action coming out of a workshop, especially a virtual one for 90 minutes. So a few fast facts. Supply chains are complex. You really don't think about it because we normally break them up into individual small processes. But really, when you start to look at it from start to finish, it is a complex process. 2, accessible storage. Traditional retailers and wholesalers need large storage locations, and we don't think about it as much as small business owners unless we've got to store supplies, limited sets of products and those types of items, or if I'm in manufacturing or wholesale. 3, supply chain management is a juggling act. You manage multiple supply chains, everything from your office supplies to toiletries for the building and facility to raw product, as well as brochures, marketing materials, case studies, and other types of things that you build for the business. Another reason to have a plan is lack of information visibility. Today's customers are very, very mobile. They want to know where things are at 24/7, day in and day out. And 5, safe and green. Raw materials, goods, and finished products must meet safety and other compliance regulations. And it's up to us as the owner of the company to make sure that we're meeting those. And then, the thing that everybody focuses on is cost. Face it, they want the best product for the least amount of money, and supply chain managers must balance the cost and quality. But the number one fast fact I want you to walk away with today is this. Every customer interaction, whether it's you, a partner, a supplier, the janitor of the organization, has the ability to win or lose the customer every time we interact with them. That's why your supply chain is so important, to make sure you've got it lined up and figured out. A recent study by PricewaterhouseCoopers identified a couple of things. One, here's what CEOs want. They want an end-to-end consistent customer experience. They want a hub for production and logistic information so they know where things are at. They want milestone tracking. They want responsible, reliable suppliers, and they want to have strong partnerships with those suppliers. Better forecasting tools, and really they want to improve the supply chain operation. The real result is we all want growth, scale, and edge on the competition, but more importantly, we want no surprises. So how do I figure out what my supply chain operation ought to look like? If you look at the industry standard, the Supply Chain Operation Reference Model, or SCORE, has 6 different types of supply chain models. And they're really built to handle a wide variety of organizations. The key is this. No one group utilizes a single supply chain model. You will have a hybrid, but you'll be looking at performance, processes, practices, people, and it really goes all the way from material planning all the way through repairs and returns. And it can get complex. We're here today to kind of help simplify that process. We're also here to test out a couple of different hypotheses. With COVID-19, experience has pointed out significant issues with the just-in-time inventory capabilities. And they're really asking questions, do I go to a model that is just in time or just in case? Just in time, automatically assumes a couple things up front. You have the minimum amount of ready product on hand to do business. With a process, with automated orders and those types of items to keep the doors open. Well, we found out in many cases that just hasn't worked in 2020. You've seen all the runs on toilet paper and wipes and Clorox wipes and disinfectants and cereals and those types of items. And it's begun to expand into aluminum cans, the auto industry, and those types of items. As small business owners, we run into the same thing. We also want to begin thinking about just in case. Just in case is having some surplus stock on hand to ensure the fact that you have things running smoothly. Your effort in this area is figuring out what's your level of risk tolerance that you can live with. It's entertaining because I took this, and my wife and I took this into and out of the business setting and put it on a personal setting here a few months ago. Both our children are in critical resources and can't take off work, and they'd come home and they'd have to end up spending the evening time doing online learning with their children. So they really didn't have time to go out and get some of the needs that you wanted to, right? We all go shopping. Most people go shopping on a weekly basis and grab what they need. And people soon found out, wow, I'm out of toilet paper. I've got 5 people in my household. What am I going to do? So my wife opened our own little inside pantry down in the basement and started stocking up on these different things because she knew she'd have 3 families to kind of look at. This is much the same thing as a small business because that's how you run your business. You may have 3 employees to 20 to 50 to 60 employees, and it's your responsibility as owner to ensure the fact that you've got all the product and capabilities to run the business. So one important thing to think about is what is your tolerance for risk and running out of the ability to deliver your product, which means you need to look at just in time and just in case for suppliers for materials coming in and partners as product and services are going out. The second thing to think about is this. We don't spend much time in school or in a lot of the business courses also to think about the partnership types. This is a chart that is basically from the Strategic Partnering Handbook by Tony Lindrum from years ago. And he breaks down vendors, suppliers, and partners and defines them this way. If you're a vendor, you are predominantly transactional based. You're a trader, little differentiation, low margin, and little loyalty. And that's depicted by the gold blocks. If I'm going to begin to work that supplier into my operation, I need to look at differentiation. I need to see how they're adding value and how they provide expertise to supplement what my organization may look at. And those are represented by the gray blocks. And then I truly get into partnering, which is now looking and saying, we're in this together. We have a single message, a single set of objectives, and we are managing things those ways. We share strategies, visions, and goals, and those types of items. And as I move from left to right, service levels change. Methods and procedures change. Our information sharing changes. And in many cases, we move into shared infrastructure. So I'll take a couple of small business examples. I worked with a manufacturing company down on Kansas Avenue. They had about 22 employees. They were about a $5 million metal fabrication organization. And what they found out is their supplier of aluminum was really a vendor. They were buying rolls of aluminum and they had very little storage. So they might have 3 or 4 big rolls of aluminum. These are about 500 yards in length, all rolled up. And based upon the production for the day, they may order or not reorder supplies. One of the suppliers had a hiccup on their delivery process. They also were a small business and they had 3 drivers, and one driver quit, another driver had an accident, so they were down to 1/3 of their delivery capacity. As a result, the wholesale organization that was doing sheet metal had to actually thin down their operation and put people on furloughs. So it's important to sit back and look at your suppliers and your vendors and determine what level of engagement you really need to have and what access to critical information you want them to have as well. We'll refer to this chart a few different times, but like I said, you can go out to Strategic Partnering Handbook by Tony Lindrum and get basically 200 pages on how to make this work. At Veracity, we simplify it even further and say your business is only as good as the weakest link in your supply chain process, right? Having a good strategy creates the customer experience we all want to deliver. In short, the roadmap to deliver products and services. And it doesn't matter if you're a dentist, a doctor, a small marketing company, a digital transformation organization, a consulting group like Veracity and others, as well as what I'll just call small manufacturer and assembly type organizations. So we're going to share a little bit about each one of these bubbles as we move through the next several minutes and walk down through the ecosystem. And what I would do is I'd begin taking some notes around those areas. So at the end of this session, we can talk about how we improve. So first and foremost is leadership, managing the customer experience. Even though it's everyone's job as the owner, it's your role to really sit there and say, who's in charge of supply management? Is it an individual? Is it multiple individuals? And in most small and medium organizations, we normally advise to find one person who is considered to be the point of contact for your end-to-end processes to get raw goods and services in, get them built, and then pushed out to the customer. And in leadership, your real role is really to establish the team. Create what we call customer experience ambassadors for incoming, outgoing, and production items. To determine which supply chain model you want to use, conduct an inventory of your suppliers and partners, and most importantly, document your supply chain processes. Then you can begin to assess the threats and risks against them and create your plans for having continuous services and supply of products. The second area is governance. And that is truly looking and saying, what are the guiding principles I want to have for my products and services? Some organizations look and say, never out of product. We meet our customers' needs within 24 hours of order taking. I want to have the ultimate customer experience. I want to have live people talk to my customers. But sitting down and identifying the 3 to 5 guiding principles that help govern decisions and what you're going to do around the supply chain. Setting up your goals and objectives. Funding the process and really identifying, do I have a physical organizational structure or is my organization more matrix to ensure that I've got things covered? Communication and escalation, and then incentives. We're going to focus a little bit of time though on escalation and notification. One of the most important elements in your supply chain is knowing what to do and who to call when an issue has occurred. There's nothing worse than having a customer contact you and want to know something is, and you not have the information from your supplier or your partner. You ultimately are responsible for that customer escalation. So we recommend setting up what we call our communication chart. And that is, if I have an issue that happens in my sales and marketing steps, do I have partners in this area? And if so, how are decisions made and how do things get escalated if they run into issues? A key example of that is you may have what I'll call channel partners or people that do sales for you that are not part of your company. They're using brochures, they're using marketing material, and hopefully they're yours. They're providing a message and they're even providing estimates for you. The key or the question there is, what happens if something changes? You need to know about the fact that your supplier provided an estimate for $10,000 for product or service that is normally $4,000 within the organization. you need to know that that customer has a $10,000 expectation and not a $4,000 expectation. So as you look at it and begin to think about how to manage that, one, establish your points of contact inside your organization and with partners. You see a lot of organizations, we're going through it right now with Department of Health, police department, governments, and those types of things. They have one individual identified as their information officer, sharing what is happening. Two, identify the notification steps you need to take when an incident occurs. Document the incident and establish the actions and rules. And then most importantly, educate and train your employees and partners on that process. This is why as your business expands and grows, you need to have good, solid processes in place. And it moves us right to the processes, right? We are a big fan of value stream mapping or process mapping throughout the organization. I have everything from my cart to requisition products or services. I have approvals that may need to go through multiple levels. I have dispatching. I also have receiving of goods, vouchering that, and then payment and customer service and problem management. So if you think about it, we talked up front how complex the supply chain management process really is. And that's why you really need to have an end-to-end visibility on what is happening in each one of those areas. I'll give you a good example of this. We did some work for an organization that needed to onboard volunteers. It took about 30 days to onboard a volunteer, which is by all means totally reasonable when it came to staffing organizational roles. By doing a value stream map and going through everything from their online process where a volunteer could come on board or volunteer, to the interview process, the background checks, training them and educating them, giving them their badges, getting them access to the building and those types of items. The process was about 30 total days. By looking at those processes, they could identify the areas for improvement and greatly reduce that. And now they're down to about a 5-day window to bring somebody on. And that may not be very important in a lot of organizations, but if you were looking for a critical role and it takes you a month to bring them on board once you found them, then that becomes a problem. It's even more complicated when you think about those of you that have what I'll call production or assembly capabilities within the organization. We worked with an agriculture company that makes seed treatment equipment, and their process was very convoluted in the sense that a salesperson would go out to a seed dealer. They would take pictures of their shop. They would drive back to the plant. They would map it up. They'd give it to engineering. Engineering would size it and schematic it. They'd do an estimate, and then they'd drive back out to the customer. That took them 30 to 45 days. The problem is other seed equipment people were calling on those same customers during that 30 to 45 day window. The company that could provide the process, the schematics and the estimation process would win. So no matter how large or small we are, processes are key to making your business fly. And process management, you know, we are taught in many cases to do process mapping or value stream mapping for an individual particular process. We recommend that you look at it and go with an end-to-end set of diagrams, because what may help one internal part of your process may disrupt the entire end-to-end process. It was entertaining. I worked for Sprint for a number of years, and we had some process improvements that were going on. And I worked at 12th and Main, so we had parking spots. Something as simple as a parking spot. but we were paying for 400 parking spots every day. When you add it up, that's a lot of money. So a team of good thinking people went down and started monitoring, if you will, the parking spots. And what they found out was at given times of the day, we only used 300 or 260 of those spots. So they thought, we'll do a process improvement. We'll release 100 of our parking spots back to the building and save that $35 a month times 100. What was the problem was they only looked at spot timings during each day. They didn't do it at the beginning of the day. They didn't do it in the middle of the afternoon. And what we found out was costs were going up because people were having to buy parking spots on the retail market versus the agreed upon price. So once again, a single good idea in a single siloed process created more costs in the overall. Another one of the components is knowledge management, or a repository that captures and organizes your policies, procedures, processes, information about your partners, inventory, performance levels. The key walkaway here is every one of your business processes, especially those tied to supply chain management, need to be in a repository where people can access them. If I'm one of your partners and a situation has occurred, I'm not thinking about your business all day long. I need someplace to go and pull up the policy, the procedure, and know who I should talk with and how I should talk with you. The key here is don't spend a lot of time looking at the tools to build a repository. You've got Google Docs out there. You've got Microsoft Teams. You've got SharePoint. You've got shared folders and files that you simply use PowerPoint, Word, and Excel to put them in there. The key, though, is you want to have those processes, the flows, the inventory, your metrics, and partner scorecards, if you will, all in one location, so you don't have to figure out if you're going to go to somebody's desk or a laptop in order to dig out and get information. Partner management. And we'll spend a little more time here because this is really the heart and soul of ensuring the fact that you have a good partnership and management process in place. When you think about how to manage partners, first of all, you start with attracting. I need to know who and what and why I need a partner for. I want to know how you would act. I want to identify desired outcomes, business preferences, so I know who I want to go after and bring in to work with me on my partners. And in most cases, small and medium businesses, you have really two levels of core partners or suppliers. Your incoming and your outgoing. So how do I get sales? How do I drive sales? How do I get raw products into my assembly or production process? And then how do I deliver those products and services to the end customer? So I want to identify the type of partner and the level of partnership I need to have. So if I have a supplier and I'm going to Office Depot or your Irvine to get office supplies, that's a transactional level. I want to know that they have the supplies that I need. What happens if they don't, right? Well, in this particular area, I can go to a couple of others. I can go to Office Depot. I can go to, like I said, Irvine. I can go out to Micro Center if it's technology and electronics and those types of items. But I also know that I need to think too deep. So when I am attracting and identifying my partners, I want to have a couple of them. Just like the aluminum example, I want to have two suppliers, a primary and a secondary. Second, I want to think about the customer experience and how I engage my partners. How much do I lift up the covers for my partners to see. I know I need to share some information with my partners, and they need to share it with me. I know they've got internal business processes, and I've got processes. Are they aligned and are they working? And in this case, I'll give you another real good example. Once again, it's with a large company, but it is very, very true for small and medium-sized companies as well. And it comes down to your technologies and your partner's technologies in many cases. Sprint had signed a deal with one of the largest chains for electronics, Radio Shack. And we had 20 board feet of space in their stores. And we had a great set of products and services for them to follow. The problem was when you put the two systems together, it would take the Radio Shack salesperson 15 minutes to complete an average sale with Sprint. Our competitors had made it simpler. Their systems and the way they did business were a little more fluid, a little more agile. They could actually do a customer sale in 7 minutes. Unfortunately, the salesperson got the same commission no matter if they sold Sprint's, AT&T, T-Mobile's. So what started taking place with a great relationship is they were selling our competitors' products at a much higher and much faster pace. It's because we didn't do the needs assessment and what I will call the personalized strategy around how business was going to be performed. We assumed that they would utilize the Radio Shack systems and push the information to Sprint. And what we found out was they were hooking their systems to Sprint and it was a double hop. So when you're thinking about engaging, you want to think about how their business process has the ability to impact your business process. I went to the doctor this last week, and it's a small business. I think he's got 7 employees in the building, 2 other part-time doctors in his practice, moving through and helping them get things moved and through the process. And as you walk in the door, they had several questions that they would ask you. They would take your temperature on your forehead. If you didn't have a mask, they would look to give you a mask. The problem was, early on, they couldn't get masks. What are you going to do if you don't have those masks that are there? And they were calling their supplier, and their supplier was telling them, yeah, they're on the way. But the problem is this. As a small business owner, they didn't have the revenue pull to become important to that particular supplier. So when you're engaging your suppliers, you really and truly want to look at how you sit in their eyes. It's easy to be a great partner when everything is working good. But when product or goods are in high demand and hard to get, where do you rank and where do you stack up in their chain? So you got to think about how you attract or identify them and engage in them. The next step is how do you educate them? If you do not educate your partners, you cannot manage the customer service and the customer experience. So as you are looking at your business processes, you really do want your partners to know and understand what happens in your business and educate them. A bigger part is even how to motivate them. How do I get my partners to really understand the impact of good customer service and poor service as a result of their capabilities? We've all had, excuse me, experiences with our suppliers that went good. The question is, what happened when you had a poor customer service experience? Were they interested in you? Do you have service level agreements and did they matter? Did you have return on investment value determination? So as you begin to think about this, right, you begin to identify, if I have a breakdown in a piece of equipment and I have outsourced my team to fix those issues and problems, are they timely? Are they friendly? Are they courteous? Are they clean? Do they fix it the first time? And how will I pay them any different? In the real estate industry, people are beginning to hold back escrow money from a builder until all things have been finished and updated and upgraded. Support. Two-way street. I need to ensure the fact that while my partners are supporting me, I'm supporting them. I need to have communication strategies with their company and their employees just like I do my own. I want to make sure my partners know and understand the delivery timelines, the methods, how things are going to get done, how the touch points are in place. Like many of you, I owned a small consulting company for 15 years. We had 5 individuals that worked for us, and we did not do finance and human resources. But my customers were always looking for that type of help as well. So we identified a few partners to help us, specifically in human resources and in the finance arena. I needed to know as much about what was happening in the finance part of the project as I did every other piece. So therefore, I needed to ensure the fact that the analysts working in the finance area on our project from company B knew the timelines, knew the escalation processes, knew who to contact and how to contact someone in the event of an issue. In addition to that, I needed to treat those partners' people just like my own. In other words, I would never sit there on a call and badmouth an individual or chew them out just because they work for one of my partners. And then I want to get into manage, right? I want to make sure I have metrics in place to work with that supplier. I want to know that our processes are aligned. I want to know that their people and their performance, they're being rated on that as well. I want to see visibility, and I want to monitor the performance and satisfaction. So there's a lot on this particular slide, and don't get overwhelmed. What it really comes down to is up front, do I know the type of partner or supplier that I need to have? Do I have them aligned with me? Do they understand the goals and objectives? Have I educated them? And then how do I kind of keep track of them? Well, let's talk about that. You probably have a process in place today to rate your employees. I need to know that my employees are doing well. I want them to know how important they really are. And I want to make sure that they're living up to commitments. It's the same thing with your suppliers. Do they know how important they are? Do they know how they are performing? And it's your role as the owner to really make sure they do. Now, you don't have to get real fancy with a scorecard. You can begin looking and saying quality. Does this organization, do these people do a quality job? Obviously, if I'm buying parts, I know I've got rejects, I've got material returns and those types of items. Support. Are they there when I need them? Are they timely? Are they correct? Are they accurate? Delivery. Do they deliver, and is it on time and within budget? And then cost and contract. If you think about a scorecard area and focus, I want to look at my service levels. I want to rate communication, reliability, responsiveness, first time accuracy, quality, and then also want to think about areas for improvement. It's not easy or fun, but at some point in time, most organizations have to fire a supplier or a vendor at some point in time. You want to know how they're doing and keep that process moving forward and be positive. So therefore, identify areas for improvement. Educate and train. Supply chain personnel in most organizations, especially small and medium, get on the job training, right? They really don't spend a lot of time on the SIPOC or supplier input process output customer certifications. They focus on processes and are they communicating? We've seen a real uptick in the last 8 years around formal education and training for supply chain professionals. Once again, you will have to make the decision on how you invest in training and bringing people on board and managing the process. What you need to know, one, understand your procurement and distribution functions, as well as the systems. If I need to have an individual taking orders, doing statements of work, creating invoices, what do they need to know? What systems do they need to be a part of? Are they the partner systems or are they my systems? What's the handoff? Where do I pick it up? How do my people know? And then how do I move it down the line through the development and output process? Second, they need to begin to learn and understand activity-based management. How long does it take an individual to create an order through the order management process? And if it's taking too long, what are the service levels and what are the impacts? In order to do that, my people and my partners need to know and understand the business process, the series of steps it needs and goes through to create the product and deliver the product, and understand those impacts if they take too long, or in other worst cases, I've got products and services ready to be delivered without the delivery capability. They need to learn process development, analysis, and redesign. A good supply chain management person has value stream mapping or process mapping skills that they can go in and look at a business process, understand the flow, understand the load, identify breakpoints, identify loops, and have alternative ways to move around a given process. And as you begin to look at it, that includes your supplier processes as well. They need to have interpersonal skills to work across departments and organizations. In a small and medium-sized company, you really don't have a lot of what I will call silo activity, as much as you do working across partner to you, your company, and back to a given partner. So those skills and problem-solving items need to be in place to navigate the various different personalities that you're going to run into in the workplace. And then structured problem solving and troubleshooting experiences. For those of you that want a more formal education and training, there's a group out there that's really kind of focused in this area, Supply Chain Academy. And they've got some great education courses and curriculums in the event that you want to either just simply teach individuals or get them certified in inventory control, planning, supply planning, order management, warehousing, procurement, legal, and project management, with a wide variety of costs and sizes, things that come out of it. While most small and medium don't enroll in Supply Chain Academy, they do have some great courses that people ought to learn about as they get into it, right? Inventory control, supply management, supply training, order management, transportation, delivery processes. And then supply chain supply chain operations reviews. Not just another meeting. We don't want meetings to have meetings. However, it is important to look at your supply chain process. What are the service levels that you're looking at? Are they inventory turns? Are you looking at your fleet management process if you have vehicles or delivery trucks? Worked with a builder that, an HVAC contractor actually, that had 2 or 3 trucks to deliver HVAC equipment to residential houses, right? And as you look at it, what was ended up happening was they were having a high degree of builders call in and say, I don't have all the parts. And as you begin to think about it, nobody was managing the service levels or evaluating those service levels other than you had an order and we delivered it. And it was there when you needed it. However, I didn't give you all the elbow turns to the vents. I didn't give you the tape. And I gave you 120 linear feet of venting as opposed to 150. So there were no checks and balances other than the builder or the HVAC installer coming to the house and walking through it. By having a service level performance as well as a partner scorecard, we help that organization recognize and understand, yes, they were delivering products to these houses. However, they were not coordinating delivery with the HVAC installers. So that equipment could sit in that house for 1, 2, or 3 days and theft occur and no way of knowing, did I deliver the right products and services and did they get them? So by looking at the service levels and including the right metrics, they were able to identify, gee, we deliver things real well. We just don't communicate. So now what they do is they call that HVAC company every morning and identify the 6 houses they're delivering product to. Your operations review needs to look at your inventory. Am I turning it too fast? Am I turning it too slow? Do I have too much? Do I have too little? And what are the SLAs for it? I want to know how much time I'm spending conducting training and whether or not it's working. I want to look at supply chain trends and I want to capture and publish actions across the organization. So let's talk about a few examples. And that's all these are. These are examples. You know, your business landscape changes on a daily basis. So how do we stay in front of the curve? When is a cash-to-cash cycle time? What is the number of days between paying for materials and getting paid for the product? In other words, what is the time gap it takes from getting the raw goods for me to then manufacture or assemble and actually deliver it to the customer and get paid for it? And how does that impact my cash? My customer order cycle time. Number of days it takes to deliver an order after the purchase order is received. In the consulting world, we get asked all the time, when can you begin? When can you mobilize? How can you mobilize as you move through it? So part of our supply chain process is upfront. When we are walking through the needs analysis, we are beginning to predict what the customer might need and expect. Once we have the final need and the scope, we immediately look at the skill sets and the availability of our analysts on other projects. So if I'm looking to shorten the number of days between, I begin to look at that just-in-time and just-in-case scenario for my products, my services, and those types of items I have. I want to look at fill rate, the percentage of a customer's order that is filled on the first shipment. There's nothing worse than shipping multiple components to a customer and then having to assemble things on the customer site or track the fact that they have all three. We worked with a small manufacturing company out of Lawrence, Kansas. And when I say small, they had 2 salespeople, a couple of accounting people, a product manager, a supply chain manager, and 7 or 8 people in production. And then they outsourced all their delivery to a flatbed company that would deliver these products. And what we began to find out was the delivery process and assemble on-site process were disjointed. We did not send all of the right components on the first shipment. Now, this had a lot of bolts, a lot of toggle bolts, a lot of nuts, a lot of wiring, and other types of items as you move through it. And the company was very good at delivering the major pieces, but not the supporting pieces. So as a result, yes, the equipment was shipped. It reached the customer on time, within budget, but the customer could not use it because not all the parts were there. Inventory days of supply, the number of days it would take to run out of supply if it wasn't replenished. This also will be impacted by your decisions around just in case and just in time. There's a lot of different rules that you would come up with around ordering something or replenishing something. Most systems today that if you are utilizing an ERP system, they have their minimum supply with lead times that you can automatically plug and push those particular types of items. Inventory turnover, the number of times your inventory cycles per year, per month. And if you begin to think about inventory days of supply and turnover, we set up a pick and pack operation for an organization that supplied ribbons, bows, headbands, shoes, and leggings for young toddler children. And when you begin to look at inventory days of supply, they were ordering supplies from China. And if you've ever done international supply, you basically have to be 90 days in front of getting that. They had to then calculate very closely, when am I going to run out of my number one seller, which were pink headbands around Easter and Mother's Day. Red, white, and blue headbands around 4th of July. Football themed or college themed headbands in August, September, and October for college football and those types of items. So small or large, inventory days of supply and inventory turnover and fill rates are key elements. On-time shipping rates, percentage of items, SKUs that arrive on time or before the requested ship date. How well am I meeting the customer? And then days of supply. How many days of supply do I need to have? How many do I have? And what kind of money is involved in each one of those areas? So you could come up with hundreds and hundreds of metrics if you wanted to. The key is these are some illustrative examples of a few. And they're really directed to help you look at the impact to the business. So I'm a small and medium-sized business owner. Supply chain management is changing all the time because the Internet of Things is changing it. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, cloud technology, blockchain. How do I keep my head wrapped around all these things? Well, the beauty here is you don't have to. You've got organizations like the Women's Business Network that you can lean into. You've got other female business owners through the network that you can ask questions of and you can look at and lean into. There are suppliers to Women's Business Network and consultants that can help you out in this area. There are a few you want to begin thinking about. Number one, supply chain digitalization. The customer experience, everyone is becoming more and more technology enabled. They want fingertip intelligence. And notice we said intelligence, not just data. I want to know where my product and service is at all points in time. If you are using a delivery service, Van Courier, as an example, FedEx, Amazon, etc., your customers demand now to know where your product is. In many cases, we've had customers call and ask where a design analyst was at because they were supposed to be on site. Digitalization is going to do nothing but increase. Customer-driven supply, fast and flexible. Customers they fluctuate, but they've been moving back and forth between quality and cost. In today's environment, we have a huge throwaway arena. 15 years ago, I'd buy a printer. I'd spend $500 or $600 on that printer, and I would buy a service contract. Today, I've got a wonderful HP LaserJet multi-print. I think it was $300, and the toner $50 each. If something breaks down on that, I no longer call a service agent. I spend $300 and I go get me a new one. So you have to think about your products and services and where they're at in that cost and quality, and how customers can drive more and more of your actions. Robotic process automation. How do I eliminate redundant and mundane activity? Right? And in many cases, this is really, I've got very manual processes and I need to put information in multiple areas. So even as a small business, I may have an accounting system and I've got to add Veracity Consulting into that customer profile in my accounting package. I've got a CRM system, Microsoft, Salesforce, HubSpot, others. I also have to put Veracity Consulting in that system. If I am utilizing MailChimp or a few other campaign capabilities, I've got to load the company in that one. So as you begin to look at it, you've got all these pieces. If you're a doctor or a dentist, you also have a medical record database. So what I've had at this point in time is I've had to enter Veracity Consulting into 3 or 4 databases. Robotic process automation is a module that gets built that manages that profile information and pushes it into each one of those different systems. In-demand forecasting with predictive adjustments. I want to know my in-progress forecasting to know when I'm going to run out of product or supply and make predictable adjustments in the process. End-to-end product and component tracking across the delivery chain. You're already beginning to see a lot of this, but more and more of this is beginning now to creep into small and medium-sized companies. Payment technologies, you're all dealing with a wide variety of cash management, clearinghouse, credit card, PayPal, Venmo, you name it, it's out there. And then blockchain and IoT technology integration. A lot of different trends to watch. So let's think about this now. How am I ready? How ready am I? On the left-hand side, what we have is we have a list of those components, and hopefully you've received that PDF, and some of you have printed it off. If not, just get a piece of paper and kind of jot down. In leadership, how am I doing? 1 would be low, 5 would be high. And what are my thoughts? Do I have an individual that I consider to be the point of contact for supply chain processes and management and the outputs? And in many cases, that may be you. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and any keynotes. Second, governance. Do I have my guiding principles identified? Have I thought through the type of partners and suppliers I have and need to have? Process. Are they documented? Knowledge. Where does it sit? In many cases, and we've seen it in small, medium, large, and enterprise companies as well, where does everything sit? I've got a partner agreement or a contract with company XYZ, and I need to look something up. Where do I go to find it? It could be in my purchasing's desk file drawer. It may be in my human resources. It may be electronically on my laptop, my desktop, or my server. The key is it's somewhere, but I may not have immediate access to it. Partner. Have I completed the partner wheel? Do I know how to attract good partners? Do I know how to engage them? Do I know how to educate and motivate them? And then operations reviews. What am I doing, if anything, to evaluate the readiness of my supply chain process? So take a second and look at those areas. And as you're doing that, ask yourself this question. What is the one thing that if I were to do it differently would make a significant difference in my supply chain process? And this would be the time if you have key questions that you might want to ask in the chat area that Brandy could share with us. If not, I'll wait a second or two. I'm going to begin sharing examples in each one of these areas on kind of the one thing to begin thinking about and looking at. I know you've been virtual now for right at about an hour and 3 or 4 minutes, and it's hard to stay engaged. But if you've got some key questions, go ahead and ask them. As you are contemplating those, and I know many times we are shy, especially in a virtual arena. If there's only one thing that I can focus on in leadership, I would identify the person or people responsible for my customer experience. I would begin getting them together and looking at the business processes in place, whether they're documented or not, to deliver my products and services. I can't improve what I don't know. I can't improve what I cannot see. Governance. If I do one thing that's designed to make a significant difference, it's creating my excuse me, supply chain / customer experience guiding principles that I'm going to share and build my strategies around with every employee and each one of my partners and suppliers. This is so critical. If you really begin to think about key guiding principles, one that I absolutely love and recommend to every customer I work with, but it's hard to live up to, is no surprises. Those two words carry great meaning. No surprises, no excuses is another one that a few of my customers really latch onto. I don't want any surprises, and if I get a surprise, I don't want excuses. I want stand-up employees and stand-up partners knowing what my goals and objectives are and how we're going to get there. In process, my one thing, I am going to value stream map my end-to-end supply chain process. And some people will look at that and say, well, my entire business process is my supply chain. It could be. The key here, though, is you want to have and ensure the fact that your processes are documented, they're timely, they're efficient, and they deliver. We had a customer that their business process, they were having great opportunities for fraudulent activity. And what we did is we did a value stream map on how they ordered products and supplies, how they were invoiced, how they approved those invoices, how they paid them, and then how they got the money, whether it be via a check or electronic deposit or a clearinghouse, back to that supplier, as well as the customer. In looking at it, we identified 17 areas where fraudulent activity, intentional or unintentional, could take place. So my one thing in process is really focused on, do I have them documented? Partner. I'm going to give you two things here. One thing is, I want a good inventory of my partners. And when I say a good inventory, I want to know, and I'm going to go back up here several pages. I'm going to use this chart to actually profile my partners and my suppliers. Are they transactional? Are they relational? Are they partnering? Or are they pioneered? And what level of partnering is lacking? If I'm thinking about education and training, I look and I begin to ask, what is it that I need to train people on? Do I have the training material? And how often am I training and reinforcing? In many cases, education and training is really an ongoing activity because you and your partners have turnover that requires people to pay attention to it. And then operation reviews. Am I focused on, do I have a set of service level agreements, SLA metrics, that tell me a story? And two, within my partners, am I evaluating them against my operation reviews and data? And as you begin to think about your next steps, I would encourage you today, tomorrow, next week, to sit down and think about those items that you identified and what you could or should be doing about them. On the left-hand set of blocks, you might put in your one thing. And in the right side of the blocks, you may look at who is actually doing this. And in many cases, for small businesses, the information on the right side is the same person, which in and of itself creates an issue. So how do you get started? Right? We've talked about the components. We've looked at the elements and the pieces. So how do I get started? Here's what I would recommend. Number one, take stock. Document the existing business processes and vendors by the role. Two, put in place your supply chain stewards and create your guiding principles. Once you have the guiding principles, you'll be able to identify other action items you need to be aware of. Awareness. Create your communication plan to really make partners and employees aware of your guiding principles and your goals. How do I make sure everybody's aligned? Evaluate. Look at your plan. Look at your vendor performance. Look at your SLAs. And then reviews. I'm ready to actually now begin to do my operational review, and all of my findings can go into my supply chain management roadmap. And in closing, your supply chain ecosystem is really set to deliver your customers on time, within budget, and meeting their demands. Customer experience and supply chain is everyone's job, end to end. Your suppliers and partners can make or break your relationship with every customer. You need to make sure they're aligned to deliver. You can't improve what you don't know. So begin conducting supply chain operations reviews and make sure you know your business processes and those that have the ability to impact delivery to your customer. And with that, are there any questions that anyone might have? Questions, thoughts, ideas? I want to thank you for joining us today. And just because you haven't asked questions here, you can still get a hold of myself at the email below, as well as Brandy, and we'll be glad to answer questions and share learnings with you. And I will also remind everyone that the weekly webinars, you can see more and more. This is a great process, Brandy. And I think the ability to look at the link down below and go out to the Women's Business Center Eventbrite location and look at what's coming every Wednesday is just a fascinating and fantastic tool. So Brandy, I'll turn it back to you.
Great, thank you, Pat. And thank you all for joining us for this webinar. And as Pat mentioned, feel free to check out our upcoming sessions that we have. We have several on social media. We have sessions on financial topics. So there's quite a breadth of sessions, and We do want to encourage you to visit our YouTube channel as well to view the recordings of our previous sessions, as there may have been topics that you missed that would be beneficial to you and your business. Thanks again, and have a great day.